Darwin came up with the idea of natural selection.
Very briefly, here's how natural selection works. In every species, there's variations. Some individuals are big, some are small. Some are fast, some are slow. And some of that variation is inherited. So in every generation, most of the children will be born to those animals that have what it takes to survive and reproduce. And those children will tend to inherit what it takes. So as the generations go by, the average animal in the population gets a little bit better. It may seem hard to believe that animals as complicated as these could evolve in the way that I've been saying. But that's because we're not very good at understanding the immensity of time that's been available for it all to happen. Domestic dogs and horses have evolved by artificial selection in a few hundred generations. But life has been going on this planet for about 4,000 million years, and that's plenty of time. When an animal reproduces, its DNA gets passed on to the next generation, that very DNA that made it successful at surviving and reproducing in the first place. Every now and again, rarely, there's a random mistake in the copying of DNA called a mutation. And mutation, together with the shuffling of DNA that happens in sexual reproduction, spreads the variation through the population. Now, if a variation is advantageous, say it gives a predator better eyesight or something, then that's the DNA that will go forward to the next generation. So it's changes in DNA that drive evolution forward.
One of the more surprising things that Darwin suggested in his theory of evolution was that humans and chimpanzees were somehow related.
Now, if Darwin is right, and humans and chimpanzees are very close relatives, then we should expect to see that their DNA is very similar.
Scientists can extract DNA from cells and then cut it up into fragments using special chemical techniques. When these fragments are separated, they can be used to work out the genetic code contained in the DNA. This means that the DNA from different species can be compared.
The order of these fragments of DNA correspond to the order of the different letters of the genetic code. It's much easier to analyze these results on the computer. The top line of letters here is what my own genetic code looks like, though it's only a small part of my DNA. We can compare this with the genetic code of a chimpanzee here along the bottom. The two sets of DNA are very similar. In fact, there's only one change here in the stretches of letters that we have here on the screen. If we looked at all my DNA, we would see that 98% of it is identical to that of a chimpanzee. This is very strong evidence that humans and chimpanzees have a common ancestor. The fossil record suggests that this common ancestor was alive 5 million years ago.
The main evidence for the theory of evolution is that the fossil record shows that animals have changed and evolved over millions of years. Over time, most animals and plants have become well adapted to their environment by natural selection. DNA analysis shows that all animal species share a large percentage of identical DNA, so they must have common ancestors.